And so the state of not knowing is over, or so we assume. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka has ended the suspense and rejoined Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, the coalition whose name, by the way, he personally extended, and the party he is now pledging total allegiance to ahead of the August 9th election. Raila Odinga is hailing Kalonzo's return in football analogy. The Azimio first 11 is complete, but we assess match fitness. And it was Madaraka Day yesterday, the last for President Uhuru Kenyatta in office, as the handover date beckons after his 2 terms at State House. And self-appraisal it was, as the president walked the nation down his legacy story. We break down the president's speech and pick out the hits and misses. On My Take tonight, it cries out for the voice of the IEBC, and the memo lands in the same address with some advice on that aspirant's integrity dilemma. The punchline wonders why homes of presidential aspirants were not declared hotspots, while the kicker wonders just how long it'll take for the Alchemist Bar to be declared a national disaster. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the News Gang.
Our true measure lies in our ability to discern when the nation is bigger than an individual. Therefore, after deep introspection, I have today deferred my dream to run for the President of the Republic of Kenya in the forthcoming general election. After wide consultation with the party leadership, the clergy, and the professionals, I've decided to accept with humility and appreciation my nomination as the Chief Minister in the Azimio One Kenya coalition. The question is not if we form the government, it is when we form the next government. I would also wish to congratulate my learned sister, the Honorable Mother Wangari Karua, Senior Counsel, on her nomination as the Deputy President nominee of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party. And I want to assure Mother of my full and unequivocal support and that ticket of Raila Odinga, Mother Karua. Wow. Beginning today, I commit myself to the Azimio Oka campaign activities, because when this race to win, we have no option. So, back and forth and back again after 17 days of a break. Ladies, gentlemen, it is the return of the Buffalo Soldier, and that 17-day break was, I think there was a time away in Yatta with his cows, and then, you know, a trip abroad, and then now he is back again. Francis, what happened over the last 17 days?
Many things happened in the last 17 days. But what happened today was not largely unexpected. Actually, for me, it was not a matter of if, but when. And it was obvious. I mean, you would see President Uhuru Kenyatta's involvement in the whole Kalonzo affair, Gideon Moi doing the legwork, and kept him very, very close for the entire period of the 17 days. You even remember on 16th of May, when Raila Odinga was naming his running mate at KICC, Gideon Moi first stepped in at KICC, then went to Kalonzo's function and then stayed there. Then went back. And has constantly remained around Kalonzo. And actually today, when Kalonzo was making that announcement, Gideon Moi was by his side. And you could tell. I was at the SKM Center, and we were asked to hold on for about half an hour or so to wait for Gideon to arrive. And you could see the role of Gideon Moi in this, as well as President Uhuru Kenyatta's. It also didn't come as a surprise to me, because I think a week ago, you saw the professionals who addressed a news conference at Serena, shortly followed by the religious leaders, and you could see the organization was the same. All of them asking Kalonzo to suspend his presidential bid and agree to support Raila Odinga and essentially go back to Azimio. And a few days later, you saw the political class meet at Stony Athi with the same message, even a vote and everything else. And you could see the systematic and, I would say in a choreographed manner, the messages urging him to return to Azimio. Surprise, surprise. When he was making his statement today, what did he allude his decision to? One, after listening to my political party, after listening to professionals, after listening to the religious leaders. So the events of the last 2 weeks and what happened today, tying up. And suffice to note, some of the people who are at the Serena press conferences, Mumo Matemu is a member of the team that was there when Kalonzo was announcing his presidential bid on Monday the 16th. You saw Kokimuli there.
Yes.
You saw Daniel Yumbia, the CEO of Kenya Medical Practitioners Board, and shortly thereafter left for Switzerland, where President Uhuru Kenyatta was. There is no coincidence in politics.
Absolutely none. But
Yvonne, there's no coincidence in politics. And I said this last time, and I say it again. Kalonzo Musyoka knows his worth. And he has decided to play hardball this time around and insist, because as Gashuri says, President Uhuru Kenyatta pia aliingilia to try and convince him arudi. And it is said that the votes in Eastern are about 1.7 million. And Gashuri, I was listening to your story and said his supporters say if you add Lower Eastern to it, it can get up to 2 million votes. Hizo ni nyingi. And those are votes that can make or break a race. And Kalonzo understands this, and he knows it's important to both sides. Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, both would have wanted to have him. And the votes that he has, because we've said it here, that he is the Eastern region kingpin. Na watu wa huko, wanampenda na wanamdhamini. I remember what people were saying after he was not picked as the running mate for the Azimio candidate. Walilalamika sana, wanasema, pali Kalonzo anaenda, sisi tutamfuata. And he understands his worth, and he's played hardball, and now he's back in the fold. And it's interesting that in the 17 days that Gashuri and Yvonne you're talking about, Kalonzo Musyoka is supposed to appear before Wafula Chebukati on 4th of June at 2 p.m. Yes, at 2 p.m. The same day Dr. William Ruto is supposed to also present himself before Wafula Chebukati and present his papers so that he can be considered to be in the ballot as a presidential aspirant. He took his documents. Andrew Sunkuli represented him there. I remember he even thanked the over 60-something thousand people who gave them signatures and copies of their IDs in 33 counties, because he was going ahead. Unajua ajaribu kuonyesha ndio mnataka kumeniondoa tikiti ya urais hamukunipa, you didn't name me as running mate, and now I'm ready to go at it alone. So he was going all the way, yeah? Having to collect all those signatures, Yvonne, is no mean feat for anyone. And we saw these other candidates. Of course, they are from smaller parties struggling, but he had 33 counties giving him the 2,000 plus signatures and IDs. So he was going ahead. But now, amesema nimetulia, nimekubali wadhifa nilopewa, and there were negotiations behind the scenes other than being given the chief minister's position. I would love to see what else he was promised for him, for those watu wake, because that's one of the things that the Wiper Party aspirants and members were talking about when they met and urged him to go back to Azimio. But what is in it for them as Wiper, not just as Kalonzo Musyoka, and of course the Eastern region. I'd be interested to see what else they've been promised. But now he's back, and I could see, I think, the relief today in the rally, in terms of now when Raila Odinga brought Kalonzo and the Makueni governor and the Kitui governor Charity Ngilu and said tuko pamoja, and he did the same actually with other regions and aspirants who from two different parties who are going for the same seat, kusema huyu ameachia fulani, huyu ndo ataran. So now hakuna kufield candidates wengi sasa pali moja. So I think Kalonzo Musyoka coming back into Azimio is a really, really big deal.
But you know, you talk about the relief that was seen today at the rally. Perhaps that could have been the same thing described when Kalonzo first joined Azimio after that long wait, I think, at the KICC. And then they went for a rally at Jacaranda grounds. And there seemed to be the same relief at the time. And I know, Jamila, you say that, you know, he knows his worth. And so what was the whole point of collecting all of those signatures? To what end, when you bear in mind that on the day he announced that he was parting ways with Azimio and, you know, unveiled his own running mate, he did say, we're going our separate ways, but we will compare notes. So there just seems to be quite the back and forth. Elinas, is he a flip-flopper, or is, you know, does he know his worth? And can Azimio really breathe a sigh of relief? Or might we see something like this again in, who knows, the next week or two or a month?
If there is one thing that Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka has proved to the country, it is that he is a master of political neon signs, flashing all the colors and at different times. And he's done it very, very effectively when it comes to how he's handled his political life in Azimio. He has caused the coalition in very equal measure, both relief and anxiety. He is given that coalition both in very, very equal measures. Relief when it joins in, and anxiety when he's not in it. And that goes down to what Jamila describes as his value. This is pragmatic politics, in my view, from the part of Kalonzo Musyoka. Because if you look at how the last 2 weeks have been playing out, there have been a lot of pressure that has been mounted from different quarters, from his own party, from a number of opinion leaders from his Ukambani region, to basically tell him, no, go back there. And I think that has also played a role in bringing about the change of mind. And when I talk of pragmatism, it's that realization that this race for a long time now, and we've said it here on the gang for a number of shows, that this race has for a very long time shaped itself into a two-horse race, regardless how you look at it again. Because there's been something like this before, and that is the 2002 election, which was a two-horse race between President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was then the KANU candidate, and Mwai Kibaki, who was then the opposition candidate. It didn't matter who else came to play. And I remember there are indeed a number of candidates that did make a very, very glorious entry to the presidential race, like the late Simon Nyachae, former finance minister in KANU, James Orengo, who was thinking, in the absence of Raila Odinga in Nyanza, maybe he could be the next big thing in Nyanza. But the race persisted and insisted on becoming a two-horse race. And this is what happens increasingly in our politics. It looks like we will be. I mean, this is the number, I think, fourth election that is actually going the same way in terms of shaping itself very early as a two-horse race. 02, Mwai Kibaki versus Uhuru Kenyatta. 07, Mwai Kibaki versus Raila Odinga. 013, Uhuru Kenyatta versus Raila Odinga. 017, same thing again. And now, Raila Odinga versus William Ruto. So it's decidedly a two-horse race. We do not have a president in this country where a third wheel, a third force has come to win the election. We've, for the last 4 elections now, chosen between two horses.
The issue of, perhaps the flip-flopping or negotiating skills, as some would like to put it, it's all also based on trust. I mean, if you look at history, betrayal is the currency of Kenya's politics, and there has been that, particularly with Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. And so, what is this? In this point, is this probably why he's choosing to do this negotiation in a very public way, as opposed to, we know before that these are the things that have happened behind the scenes, but right now you're starting to see it very overtly. I mean, we all remember, not too long ago, actually, when, Kalonzo Musyoka issued that purported agreement that they had. But right now, I think it's choosing to say, okay, these are the cards on the table. I accept with humility the position of chief minister that he said, sort of before God and man type of scenario. Does this hold now? Does this mean things will be different? Should Azimio, win? Will it be a little more trustworthy this time?
I look at it this way. There is the pre-election scenario, and there definitely will be a post-election scenario. You can take this to the nearest bank. There will be a situation after the election. But suffice to say, look at how Kalonzo has negotiated pre-election. Negotiate, and LK the other day said, negotiate you to boredom, push you to the...
Beat you to submission, quite literally, yeah.
take you to the wire. And this has something to do with the past. We all remember the public altercation and the, once again, Moses Wetangula, Messi, what was that slogan? Messi, something.
Oh, well, are we still allowed to use it?
It'll be
messy, noisy, and with consequences.
Yes.
Are we allowed to? No, we are quoting him.
We are
so
quoting
it's fine.
him.
Yes, and we must attribute it to
Absolutely.
Honorable Moses
Absolutely.
Wetangula.
And I do so. Look at the scenario that we saw in NASA, for example. You know, the quarrel over political parties fund and everything else, even the unleashing of some secret deal. So this is a scenario where, because the law has also changed, you are also supposed to have a coalition agreement that is a public document. So negotiate and negotiate very well, so that by the time you go to an election, you already know what is your share, what is your stake in the government that you're seeking to form in the event that you win. And I think that is a kind of a scenario where Kalonzo Musyoka has been. Like, don't hurry me, don't push me.
Yeah.
I will negotiate to a scenario where I feel that I've gotten what I was looking for. Started with the presidency, presidential ticket, then the running mate. Then now the position of a chief minister has been given, but it is a position that didn't have functions per se. Those functions have been outlined in that coalition agreement. But also, you're also looking for a stake. What is my share of this government? 20%, 30%, or whichever percentage that you're looking for. So the next thing that we should be looking out for is to get a copy of the schedule of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party Agreement. That is the agreement that is a schedule that will tell us who has gotten what in this government if they win. And in the event that they win, if there are quarrels thereafter in terms of sharing of the positions, portfolio balance and everything else, you can use that coalition agreement as a reference point. This is what we had agreed before the election. But it is important, Yvonne, to take note of certain things that happened. On Monday, 16th May 2022, when Raila Odinga, while unveiling his running mate Martha Karua, also designated the position of chief minister for Kalonzo Musyoka, it is the same time he was announcing his presidential bid. He had an opportunity to respond to that offer of a chief minister instantly and say, I am a presidential aspirant, so I don't want that position because I'm a competitor.
Yes.
What did he do? He didn't talk about it and has not talked about that position until today. So that means it was part of a consideration. At the back of your mind, negotiate, but this is a clinched position. This is a secure position. So negotiate for any other position.
And it would seem that they knew about it because even, you know, on the Azimio side, when they made that announcement and he was, you know, busy distancing himself from Azimio, they said nothing about it either, you know, in terms of to say, look, Kalonzo seems to have left the fold. So in fact, that chief minister's position, we will now hand it over to person X, Y. I mean, but I think now going forward, Jamila, it's going to be about his contribution to the Azimio La Umoja campaign. So beyond the numbers that, you know, keep being touted, you're seeing other people out on the campaign trail. You know, I mean, if you take a look at Martha Karua, once she was announced as Raila's running mate, I mean, even if you take a look at the other side, Rigathi Gachagua, once he was announced, they went completely out on the campaign trail. And to be fair, we haven't seen Kalonzo Musyoka really out on the campaign trail. I mean, I think the last time we saw him was before the running mate interviews. And even then, it wasn't particularly a campaign for Azimio, but
it was
more...
the Mombasa, from Nairobi to Mombasa trip, remember?
It was actually from Ukambani, Mavoko, all the way to Mombasa, and he was touting himself as the running mate. Yes, it was a pitch for the running mate position. So, you know, what else is he...
map of what Ukambani, if you didn't have an idea how
now you knew.
Spread.
Right.
He was making a statement that
I have the numbers.
From Mavoko all the way to Mombasa, these are my numbers.
So what does he do now?
That is for the purpose of negotiating.
Negotiating.
Yes, and what he's doing now, of course, now he needs to go actively and campaign.
Right.
Within Ukambani, for Azimio, for Raila Odinga as the presidential candidate, for Martha Karua as the running mate, and also appear in rallies with them. For instance, I think before the whole running mate debacle, he had appeared in one rally with Raila Odinga. I don't know if it was somewhere in Turkana.
It was in Turkana.
Yeah, it was in Turkana. And I think he did one other one before the Mavoko to Mombasa one, and he was alone. But I think now it's about time we need to see them together. Yes, there was what we saw today, they're holding hands, they say saying...
Because we've seen that before.
And we've seen that before. But now he needs to be actively involved in the campaigns. Campaign by himself in areas that are his strongholds, which is basically Eastern. Campaign with Martha Karua in some of the places she's going to. Campaign with Raila Odinga. And then do these rallies, the three of them. That's to show people now we've moved on from all the negotiations and whether Kalonzo is in the party or not, is in the Muungano or not. The fact that he has accepted that running mate position in Meenda, he's accepting the chief minister's position. We need to move forward now, in terms of their campaign. And also as Kenyans now to see that this is a solid ticket, that he's in it now to the end, and that they're speaking the same language, they're saying the exact same things. Because I think this I'm in or I'm not, niko siko na munga mkono si mungi mkono, it should be over. I mean, Yvonne, how many days do you have to the election? 60-something days to the election?
67, yeah.
And of course, finally, official campaign period, though we've been campaigning for years. Ishafunguka.
Exactly.
We're expecting manifestos to be launched for Azimio, I think, on Monday.
Yeah.
Now take that now and run with it to the people now and say, ndio hii sasa mipango yetu.
And with those 67 days to go, Linus, how is this now shaping up? I mean, I think in 2002, when was NARC formed? It was about 2 months to the election.
14th of October.
Yes.
2008.
Yeah, about 2 months to the election. So how is this race now shaping up? And is this the last we'll see of movements, perhaps not just within Azimio, but, you know, across the political divide with the time that we have left?
Remember, any movement now will be without the force of the party, because the window of defections is over. You can't be independent now. You can, basically, the doors when it comes to political parties and tickets is closed. But obviously, you can't be forced to stay where you don't want to be.
But Linus, there's provision for post-election coalitions. So you can move from one side to another and sign a post-election coalition. You know, a political promissory note, you know, post-dated political check that let's go together, but we will cash in after the election.
PD check.
Absolutely, but you will do it from where you are. If you are in Azimio, you can't change that now. It's too late. The doors have shut, and they'll close proper, especially by Monday when the last nominee is cleared by the IEBC to run for president. But there's something, and maybe, Francis, you would guide us. You attended the function. Because we didn't hear what happened to the demands that Kalonzo Musyoka had made to Raila Odinga and Azimio when it comes to even the position of Chief Cabinet Secretary. He had demanded, one of the demands that he was making was it should be written in good ink in the coalition agreement. That was one. I think there was also another one of a clear portfolio indication of what ministries that are going to be allocated to him. We're not sure whether these demands have been met or how did this change of mind came about. And maybe, Francis, I don't know whether he spoke about that.
There was no mention of it, but the mention was that he has decided to defer his presidential bid and will now work with Raila and Martha Karua that ticket. And you remember on 16th of May, he had not said some very nice things about the ticket. Actually, he said, listening to the country, and the country, if I know it, this ticket will be met with resistance. And today, it was all praises for the same ticket. So, but I would assume that some of the things that he wanted have already been taken care of. However, you see, the position of a chief cabinet secretary will be created via an executive order. That means, in terms of its security, as secure as the promise by the presidential contender if the Azimio team wins. Because the same president who can issue an executive order to create that position is the same president who can issue an executive order to undo it. So it will be largely a question of goodwill and not necessarily the written word.
Okay, and we have to remember that even the president must act according to the Constitution.
Absolutely.
And one of the questions that will be coming up, and you know, they've been thrown about, is, look, those positions, the one promised to Kalonzo Musyoka and the one promised to Musalia Mudavadi are not in the Constitution. So it's very, very likely that post-election we will find ourselves in the cabinet administrative secretary situation. Remember, those are illegal positions, even though they were created by the president. But I guess in politics you cross
the bridge,
and then you answer that. But I'm concerned about the omission around this desk of a very important part. You keep saying, what will the country think? And I'm thinking, what will Kilgoris think? Because there was Andrew Sunkuli, who is supposed to be running it. And he spoke at the event. I would like us to just listen to Andrew Sunkuli speaking about his former running mate, the boss, Kalonzo Musyoka.
To you today that giving way does not make you a scoundrel. Giving way does not make you a flip-flopper. Giving way does not make you an undecided person. Giving way does not even make you a watermelon. Giving way, in fact, gives way to you becoming a great man tomorrow.
I think this is one of the most eloquent defenses of Kalonzo's political movements. I don't know anybody who has done that before, just putting it in the way he did. And Andrew Sunkuli happens to be Mtu wa nyumbani, so I know him as quite a strong guy in literature and quite descriptive there, saying, he's giving way for greatness in future. Yvonne.
And I think the biggest question, like you said, is what happens to people like those? And, for Kalonzo Musyoka, he's not just a leader in his own right. And I suppose when he's going into an agreement like this, it's not just about the one individual. I think Titus Mbui said the same thing. Was it last week when they were asking him to come back into Azimio? Robert Mbui, excuse me, for Kathiani, and saying, okay, it's not just about individuals, but let's see what happens. But, when you're making decisions like those, there is this person that you've said, be my running mate. And then we also had talked about, the other aspirants on a wiper ticket, some of whom had made...
They've dropped their bid now.
Yes, and others who'd made some serious investments in terms of even printing their banners and their, election campaign paraphernalia, some of which had the images of, say, Kalonzo Musyoka and Raila Odinga, and who are now wondering, so what do we do? And many of those were already in the high seas, coming from China and wherever it was. And so that is the thing about, being a leader of this stature, that, it's not just about your personal movements into and out of something, but that, you carry a whole battalion of other people who are, on a wiper ticket.
Yeah, I think it was... I think for Kambani, it was more than just the election material and the investments made in that direction. Because there was a lot of political investment as well. Yes. In the last 2 elections, this is a region that backed Raila Odinga almost to a man. Basically in the
90%
and above. Yes. So in a way, they are part of Azimio because they have done the investment across 2 elections. And I think I would see the concerns from the professionals was coming from that end, that, okay, we've been with this guy, we've been in this political formation all this time. And then when
are they confused, Linus, do you think?
I don't think so. They got caught up in Kalonzo Musyoka's negotiating style. Kalonzo Musyoka thought he should be the candidate this time. Remember, he flashed out an agreement with Raila Odinga that says, in 2022, it's not you, it's my time. Yeah. So he had, in his own view, a very legitimate case of saying, it was my turn this time. And I think he pushed it to the limit and to the last minute. And I don't think it was confusion. And if you look at the backyard, it stayed there and waited. You look at the opinion poll numbers before Kalonzo decided, the number of undecideds was so high. People in Ukambani who had not decided which direction to go were still waiting for Kalonzo. Okay, what is going on? Are you running alone? Are you the Azimio, or are you being supported by Raila Odinga, or are you supporting Raila Odinga? There are all these options that Ukambani was still waiting for. But basically what this does for Azimio is the uncertainty in Ukambani is virtually out of the way now.
Yeah.
The biggest fear was what should happen. What if Ukambani doesn't go to the Azimio column? What would that mean? And remember, this was also the prayer on the other side, where that is on the Kenya Kwanza side, that Kalonzo Musyoka either goes it alone or supports them. Kenya Kwanza. So in a way, this settles it in Azimio's favor as at now, in a big way.
And that is...
as at now is very...
As at now is a very important rider for that. He said he got more supporters and admirers now.
It was after a question Gashuri asked him today.
Tell us about that question.
You see, unfortunately, the nature of our business is that you will ask a question that probably will not be very comfortable, but it comes with the territory.
Yep.
You see, obviously that flip-flop, indecisiveness question was always bound to come out. Even if I'm not the one who raised it, it would have been raised by any of my colleagues who were at that news conference. And of course, it's an unsettling question. And it's a question that I think the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka expected. And that's why you see he was armed with that response immediately. But be it as it may, that scenario was complicating things for a few people. Talk about Professor Philip Kaloki, the running mate to Polycarp Igathe in Nairobi gubernatorial race.
That was as a result of the Azimio agreement.
This is a person who got that running mate position courtesy of, the horse trading among parties in Azimio. And so if Kalonzo was to vie on his own, so what would be the fate of Professor Philip Kaloki as running mate to Polycarp Igathe in Nairobi? There are other candidates away from the lower eastern region who are vying for various seats on account of they are part of Azimio, and so they thought or they felt they would have a better chance of clinching the seat if they were to be part of the Azimio team. I mean, you're talking about somebody like Ben Momanyi, who is vying for a parliamentary seat. Some of them were getting uncomfortable. And even before this decision was made, you could hear them say, we already know where this will end. And it has ended up where they thought it would end. But I would put it this way. No one can ignore Kalonzo's space in the political setup in our country. He has a constituency, a huge one, that backs his political choices. And so it was a matter of questioning where he would be. Look, when there was that race for the running mate position, the Kenya Kwanza team kept taunting the Azimio team. Kwa nini mnafanyia Kalonzo madharau? Not necessarily because they really like Kalonzo. It's because you also you also plan your game with the opponent in mind.
How to weaken the opponent.
And also how to weaken the opponent. If my opponent plays it this way, lays out their team this way, I will lay out my team this way. And the question of Mount Kenya region was always pertinent.
Yeah.
If there was no Mount Kenya person in that ticket, it would have been a complicated scenario for the Azimio team to race for votes in Mount Kenya region. It would have been a huge meal for the Kenya Kwanza team to go to the Mount Kenya region and say, okay, where is your person in this ticket? So, but at the same time, there was also a narrative in Lower Eastern, your guy anafanyiwa madharau. So tell him to come and work with us. Obviously, he has numbers. If he brings those numbers to your team or takes the numbers to the other team or even decides to vie on his own, there are political consequences to it. Now, the question is, moving forward from now henceforth, how much of Kalonzo will we see in the campaign trail? How will he pacify his region? What will he tell them to convince them that this is the right choice? Vote for Raila for the third time like you did in 2013 and 2017. Although, realistically looking at it, his options were very, very limited. He had only two options, in my opinion, to go it alone and finish number 3, or choose any of the sides and back their bid. But at the same time, if he was to go to Kenya Kwanza, the position seemed to have already been filled. I mean, there's Musalia, the two speakers of the National Assembly and Senate have already been allocated. The running mate position had already been allocated. The chief or principal cabinet secretary,
Yes.
the prime minister, if you may like, had already been allocated. So you go there and wait on the wings.
Yeah.
So you make a choice of holding it out this side or the other side.
Yeah.
And I think his choice was made by those factors at play.
In consideration. Okay, so we want to take a break now. Just to note that the key word around this table and, you know, in the country is as at now. Kalonzo is in the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party with 67 days to go to the election. A day, they say in politics, is very long, and particularly with what we've seen, as Linus called them, political movements. I think that was a rather polite term. There's others who would use some perhaps stronger language. We'll see what happens over the next 67 days as the road to August 9th continues. When we come back, we'll talk about a little bit more, including the road to August 9th would be the road to President Uhuru Kenyatta's retirement. And he's been quite reflective lately, including at yesterday's Madaraka Day celebrations. We'll be discussing his legacy, his speech, the hits and the misses. This is News Gang. Stay with us. We'll be right back.